this one statement in the Bible has been twisted beyond recognition and has been used to scare the daylights out of millions of Christians for centuries. And here it is, Hebrews 9:27. For it is appointed once for men to die, and after this, the judgment. And it's been twisted like this. You better accept Jesus before you die, or after this you're going to face the judgment and you're going to be thrown into hellfire where you're going to be burning and being tortured for all eternity. I just did a lot of adding there, didn't I? The verse says two things. One, we're all going to die. Two, we're going to face the judgment. What happens at the judgment? It didn't say. Not in that verse, but it does in the next verse. And before we get to the next verse, we need to ask a couple of introductory background questions. Who was this verse written to? Well, it's the book of Hebrews. What does that tell us? Hebrews means the Jews, the Hebrew Christians of the first century. What was the problem? These Hebrew Christians were tempted to turn away and deny Jesus and leave the Christian faith. Well, where do I get that from? Well, once we know that, it's written to Jewish Christians who were tempted to leave Jesus, and then we come with that knowledge and read this verse again, it makes more sense. But let me show you, first of all, it's written to Jewish Christians. Chapter 3, verse 1. Therefore, holy brothers and sisters who share in the heavenly calling, fix your thoughts on Jesus. They are holy brothers and sisters, the ones who got this verse. They already share in the heavenly calling, and they are encouraged. Fix your thoughts on Jesus. Hold on to Jesus. Verse 12, see to it, brothers and sisters, believers, that none of you has a sinful, unbelieving heart that turns away from the living God. Ouch. This book was written to Hebrew Christians who were tempted to turn away from God and to lose their grip on Jesus and Christianity. But encourage one another as long as it's called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. We have come to share in Christ if, indeed, we hold on to our original conviction firmly to the very end. It's clear. We've got Christians who were tempted, Hebrew Christians, to turn away from Jesus, to turn away from the living God. And the apostle now is writing to them to encourage them, hold on to Jesus. Fix your thoughts on Jesus. So what is it about this Jesus that I should fix my thoughts on? That's what chapter 9 tells us. This Jesus, he is your high priest. He is ministry in the heavenly sanctuary with his own blood. And when he died on the cross, he dealt with sins once and for all. And when he comes back a second time at the judgment, he's going to rescue you and finish the job. Now, I have just paraphrased exactly where we're going right now. The thrust of this book is to encourage Jewish Christians to not turn away from Jesus, to hold their thoughts fixed on Jesus, because he's our high priest in the heavenly sanctuary, not like the earthly priest in the earthly sanctuary with sacrifices that never worked, because they had to do the sacrifices again and again and again. Jesus did it once, and he dealt with all sins one time. And hold on to him, because he's coming back on Judgment Day to rescue you and finish the job. These verses are not a threat of damnation. They are a promise of future salvation and a call to persevere. Let's keep reading. Hebrews 9:24-28. Listen to that verse now in that setting, okay? Hebrews 9:24-28. For Christ did not enter a sanctuary made with human hands. That was only a copy of the one in heaven. The heavenly sanctuary better than the earthly sanctuary. What do you want to go back to that for? Yeah? But he entered heaven itself, now to appear for us in God's presence. For us, not against us. What do you want to leave that for? Nor did he enter heaven to offer himself again and again, the same way as the high priest on earth enters the most holy place every year again and again with the blood that is not his own. Jesus is far better than Judaism, guys. Why do you want to go back to that for? See what he's saying? These words are positive, folks. They're an exhortation to persist. Hold on to Jesus. You got the good thing. You got the heavenly thing. You got the permanent thing. The one of the high priest on earth, he couldn't fix the sin problem, so he had to go in with blood again and again and again. The blood of animals. But Jesus, when he shed his blood once and for all, was done. Finished. Why do you want to leave that for? Fix your thoughts on Jesus. He did what the high priest could never do. Yeah? Otherwise, Christ would have to suffer many times since the creation of the world. If he was like an earthly priest, he'd have to die again and again and again and again. No, but it's much better. It's done. It's finished. Otherwise, Christ would have to suffer many times since the creation of the world. But he has appeared once for all at the culmination of the ages to do away with sin by the sacrifice of himself. Hold on to Jesus. He did away with sin. The high priest could never do it with the blood of animals. You see what he's saying? These verses are not a threat of condemnation and damnation. The whole thrust is positive. Fix your thoughts on Jesus. Why? It is finished. Why do you want to leave that for? These verses are a promise of salvation, not a threat of damnation. Just as people, there's the verse, right? I'll just read the verse before again because now we're at that verse. Now you know the thrust. It's positive. It's good. But he has appeared once for all at the culmination of the ages to do away with sin by the sacrifice of himself. Just as people are destined to die once and then face the judgment. Oh, it's in a positive context. It's not a threat. It's a promise of the finished work of Jesus and a call to hold on to Jesus. And now he brings in the death of a person, incidentally, to make a parallel with the death of Jesus. Just as people are destined to die once and after that face the judgment, so Christ was also sacrificed once. You see that? Just as human dies once and then face the judgment, so Jesus died once and was sacrificed once to take away the sins of many, and he will appear a second time, but not to bear sin, but to bring salvation to those who are waiting for him. Wow! Now we know what the verse means. Just as humans die once and then face the judgment, well, Jesus died once and he's coming back again. Humans die once, then the judgment. Jesus died once and then the second coming. Death is parallel with death, and the judgment is parallel with the second coming. Just as humans are destined to die once and then face the judgment, so Jesus died once to take away the sins, and he'll appear again at the judgment. Death followed by judgment, death of Jesus followed by return. The judgment is the return. The apostle has placed the death of humans with the death of Jesus in direct parallel, and after that they face the judgment. He died once and then he'll return. And what did he do? When he came the first time, he took away the sins. And when he appears a second time, he's not going to deal with sins anymore because he's dealt with them. For just as men are appointed to die once and then the judgment, so Jesus died once to take away the sins, and then he will appear a second time at the judgment, not to take away sins, but to save those who are waiting for him. These verses are not a threat of damnation. They are a promise of future salvation and rescue. Just as men die once, Jesus died once. After that, the judgment. After that, the second coming. And what will happen then? He's not going to come at the second coming to take away sins, because he already has. When he comes a second time, he doesn't come to deal with sins. He comes to rescue and save those who are waiting for him. So hold on to Jesus. These verses function as a promise of future rescue. With the cross having finished the work, he's coming back to finish and save. Hold on. Wait for him. He's coming back. It is abominable to use these verses to scare people when they're used to encourage people with the finished work of Jesus at the cross and with the return of Jesus to finish the job and rescue. God bless you.